radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Today is January 12th, 2023, and tonight our guest is Patricia Cori, and we are going to be discussing her new book, which I have here. It is called Hacking the God Code. There is the cover. Her website and links and everything are on our website throughout social media, and you can certainly check out stuff in the description box below and her full bio. It's been a while since Patricia has been on the show. She is coming to us live from the Azores, right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black my good friend. It's been a while, Patricia Cori. Patricia, how are you?
I'm great. It's so good to be with you again. It's been a very long while, way too long.
Yes, it has. It has. And I can't figure out why, but let's, before I go, what have you been up to? We'll get to all of that. I wanted to actually start off the show with this because the Azores is something that we'll get to the book, everybody, but the Azores, as this audience knows, is something that has come up quite a bit over the years, and certainly recently here on the show, Fade to Black, for a lot of different reasons. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the history there and how it may predate, Orthodox academia and what they have to say about civilization in the world. And that the Azores may play a more important part to all of that than everybody realizes. And the focus has been pointed in your direction. So I actually wanted to ask you this. As a resident there, and you've been there for a while, you told me earlier, this is where I'm at, man. I'm not leaving. What's the conversation there on the islands and the importance of history and ancient history? Is this something that gets talked about?
That's a very good question. When I talk to some of the, let's say, elders, for lack of a better term, the question of Atlantis comes up. When I went to recently, I went to the hospital, not for myself, thank God. And there was this gigantic mural, and it was scenes of the pastoral Azores and the island. And then I was sitting there looking at it going, what am I looking at? This scene of an underwater civilization with Romanesque type columns and statues and all in a collapsed situation, as if it were depicting a civilization that had been in the flood. And to put it all in perspective, we also know that there is a pyramid was discovered off of the island of San Miguel a few years ago by a fisherman who, I don't know if you heard about this or not, but he apparently, the light was right, he was in the right place, and he saw a perfect pyramid underwater. And then the military came in and hushed that up. So one of the reasons why I'm here is I feel it is Atlantean. And it makes sense if you look at the position of where these islands are, which is outside the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules, described by Plato. And if you consider that the North Atlantic Ridge goes pretty much from Greenland all the way down to South America, the Azores is situated in that area. Could very well be that the Azores are part of that ridge. Therefore, my opinion is, and in former books I've written about it, that the North Atlantic Ridge is actually the continent of Atlantis. And perhaps these islands are points on that remaining structure or breakaway pieces from that. but the local people do believe that this is Atlantis.
And some of the archaeology that well, there's been a lack of research there too as well, and you understand what I'm talking about, and a general lack of funding. But
Yeah.
the stuff that has gone on, I mean, to my eyes, shows me something that is man-made. It's not natural. I'm talking about some of the cave structures and the entrances, and certainly what looks like a port is there too as well. But it's been largely ignored, and that research has been self-funded only by a handful of people. When do you think we could get the attention needed, focused on the Azores so we can answer some of these questions?
Beats me. I do know that I heard from someone who's a marine biologist that there's a Atlantean, what do they call it? Mound. About 6 hours from where I am, they're calling it the Atlantean Mound. And apparently there are all kinds of scientists and geologists coming in because in this underwater mound, they're finding some very strange minerals. It's very hush hush. Nobody can seem to get any information about it, but we do know there are ships coming in exploring this. So, there are things going on here that don't meet the eye.
And now, I do want to mention today's kind of a strange day. Yesterday we lost Jeff Beck, crushed. And right before showtime tonight, just a few minutes ago, it was announced that Lisa Marie Presley has died at the age of 54. She had a heart attack earlier today. Yeah, and this is breaking news. And also today was the release finally of the UFO UAP report, and the public version of that has been released. But the classified version has reached Congress. This was supposed to have been released back in October 31st on Halloween. Much delayed, but that came out today right before showtime, and I'm still digesting that and looking at it. The reason why I bring the UFO report up is that when you're at a place like the Azores, it gives you an opportunity to observe the world from another perspective. And you've been writing about elites and global control for a very long time, but you've got a very unique perspective, from the Azores, where you can look out at the world and see the ebb and flow of this control, right?
It's really amazing. I'm sort of in this paradise, almost utopic isolation, even though I'm very involved, very aware of what's going on. It's like, over here is America, over here is Europe, and here we are sitting out here in sort of a vulnerable position considering the weather patterns. But yeah, it's almost like being back in time, which suits me very well. A simpler life, a simpler time. People, um, they're very family oriented. There's one religion here. There's no craziness. It hasn't reached us. We're it's an escapist situation for me. It's one of the reasons why I'll be here probably until I pass over to the green pasture beyond, because I'm loving being an observer of what's taking place, and but not enmeshed in it. I'm so far removed. I've been out of the United States since 1983. I moved to Italy, which is, of course, I'm Italian, so I moved to Italy to find my real roots, and ended up spending half of my life in Italy, half in America, and then I came to the island, and looks like this is where I will finish out my life. I shouldn't keep saying that. I don't intend to be leaving anytime soon.
And you're not. But here's where we're going to start to get into the book. In that you've been writing about changes and control, and trying to expose the minds of so many to what may or may not be going on, and to be aware, and also about personal development. And here we go, since probably halfway through the 20 teens, 2015 and forward, great changes have been happening all around us. And this is, in a large part, what you have been writing about. And to see some of these things start to go into reality and real time, it's an opportunity for you to say, well, I told you so. But it's another situation where you can say to yourself, I'm a little surprised. I thought this could happen, but I didn't think it would happen. Has that crossed your mind?
No, because I've always thought it was going to happen. You see, I am almost I'd say probably a contemporary with David Icke. We were both coming out at the same time. I mean, he just had a bigger audience and a bigger voice, but we were pretty contemporary. Back in the 90s, my first book came out in 96 or 97, 97, I think, The Cosmos of Soul. And it was a forecast. I mean, I was talking about the New World Order then. I was one of the first people to talk about the trails. One of the first, I think, one of the first people to talk about HARP. And so when it started to unfold, I went, well, okay, here it is. It's plain as day. But I've always been a rebel, and I've always been on the cutting edge of groupthink, what's going on. And so now when I see all of this new thought kind of environment, I'm looking at it going, it's not new thought. It's been around. It's just lots of people are waking up now, and they're waking up with a bang, because what's available now compared to what was available then is it's remarkable how much information is available to us. And I also think in your camp that we are on the absolute verge of disclosure, which is talk about a new paradigm. Because no matter how many of us understand it and believe it and have researched it, it's another thing when it's finally brought to us with beings. I think we're going to see this very soon.
Yeah, that's the part of reality that to me right now is so tangible, right? Where before it was off in the distance and it was a hope, right? It was a dream. But
Yeah.
now this thing, you can like reach out and feel it for the very first time. Like this report that was finally released today, to have UFOs and UAPs discussed in the beltway of Washington, D.C. like this. And here's the other part with that, though, Patricia. Your writing, your books has been our world, right? This is stuff that you and I and our community, we discuss, right? But it was like our little secret, our little thing. I'm not as comfortable with everybody else talking about it, right? If you know what I mean, it feels a little strange. This was our thing, but the reality of it, because of the internet and AI and the pandemic and all kinds of other conspiracies and ideas that have been put forth, the world is talking about our private little thing that we just held close to us. Are you comfortable with that? With everybody discussing these things out in the open?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. The thing is that there's this I told you, not I told you so. There's this I knew it all along vibe going on. And, we've been doing the hard work, beating down the conservative thought for all these years. It's like now, it's in fashion now. I get it. And it's a little bit hard to digest because, it's taken so much. I mean, my life has been dedicated to the revelation of all this information, like yours. So now you've got people that have been awake a year, and it's like, oh, we already knew that. Oh, if we know that. It's like, well, yeah, but some of us old timers here have been working away at breaking down this wall. So it's
you haven't done nothing. We've been at this for and it's really true. Now let's get into some substance here. It is my belief that in 1995 thereabouts, AOL. Okay, well, I'm going to start there. You remember the buddy list, and AOL and all of that. That it was a great idea. The internet, opening up these things and connecting with people around the world. It was great, but I don't think that the creators of that technology understood the human condition, emotions, and minds. What started off as a pretty cool idea turned into what it is today, this social media bot driven AI world of controlling the mind globally. And I don't think that we understood what we had created, and we never managed it. And now there are people that want to have that power from this and to have global change in nanoseconds. The creators of the internet weren't thinking about that, were they?
Well, it depends who we believe the creators of the internet were,
Ah, there you go, Patricia.
because we've got the cover story of I invented the internet, but um, I personally think that it was planted by DARPA. So, or some other, let's say, military branch of the government that deliberately wanted us to take this warp out. I mean, let's face it, we know that the plans of where humanity is being driven are not being developed by the hour. There are decades and decades of planning here. So if we're here now, I don't believe that some arbitrary dude said, oh, I've got an idea here. Let's see how this will work out. I think that the creators of this knew darn well what they were doing, and that we've got military here.
Are you surprised about how social media has so effectively divided not only the masses, but families, friends, right? Children, siblings, the divisiveness. Talk about something being tangible. It's right there.
No, I'm not surprised, because and I know we're going to talk about the book soon, but I bring forward in the book the discussion of television, which was a precursor to where we are now, turning people into very, not robotics yet. We're at the robotic stage now, but this hypnotic attraction to this purveyor of entertainment and information. I can't believe I just did that. I hate that gesture.
I do too. I pull my arms back every time.
So yeah, and that, I remember I was a kid when the TV first came out. I was a child. I mean, I was born in the 50s. So to see where we are now from there, it's such an obvious progression. First, you got them hypnotized on the television, then you got them hooked on the computer screen, then you got brought in the internet and the cell phone, and it's just this very planned, organized progression whereby humanity slowly loses interaction, dialogue, person to person experience, and becomes the subject of the screen. And I think that's a deliberate thing.
This is a perfect setup for this question. See how I do it, Patricia? You see how I do it? I set it up.
You're good.
What? Tell us about the title for the book, Hacking the God Code.
Okay, so we are now in, and you've set me up for the answer, in this state where we are progressing through all these phases, the cell phone being a big, big one, to the marching to the transhumanist drum. We're at a very, very dangerous point where humanity is being taken to a place where cyborg is no longer a Star Trek fantasy. We are seeing them. They're pushing it. They're telling us openly that we are, as biological units, we're outdated. Yuval Harari of the World Economic Forum has a video out, and not one, but many, where he openly discusses the fact that human 1.0, they affectionately call us, are obsolete. We're obsolete. They can do better. We can be better. They know how to hack human, well, they call us the human animal or the hackable animals. And we have the technology, he said, now to improve upon human 1.0. And that's where we're going. That's where we're taking civilization. We want to create, I'm watching this going, I'm not hearing this. Human 2.0, the new improved model, where we will be monitored internally, externally. We'll have wearables, we'll have pills that we swallow that are monitoring all of our biology, all of our body systems. And of course, we've got computers, Neuralink with our friend Musk. I have mixed emotions about him.
We're gonna swing back to that very important point here later on in the show. I did every show I do a fader fact, right? I do a fact. And a few months ago, I did a fader fact, and I vetted this, and well, I vet all of them. I don't want to give bad information out, but the fader fact was I forget the percentage, but it's something like half of the children born today learn how to operate an iPad before they can say the words mommy or daddy.
Oh
Now,
my God.
you know, and you just stop right there and you just absorb that for a second. Right. And now talk about altering DNA and moving from 1.0 to 2.0, and to have that as a fact of where we are today. I think that's a concern.
I think it's more than a concern. It's an urgent crisis. Let's just add to that they're not going to be allowed to say mommy and daddy anymore either, and that language mutation, political correctness, whatever you want to call that, change of language is part of this agenda, because you want to remove emotion from the language. You want to remove human identity with the language so that people can become more easily merged into the cold sterility of Borglandia. And I mean, this is a very real thing. When you talk about us being hooked up to all this software, to AI, to the great computer central, we're talking cyborgs here.
I want to post this up really quick because this is, I don't do this often, but I'm going to do this now because it's very important. Susan just said, what is transhumanism? And it's a word that I think in intellectual circles is bandied about a little bit too freely. And it's in a very important discussion of where we are and where we are moving towards. But so many hear the word and don't understand its true definition. What is true transhumanism?
Transhumanism, put simply, is the movement of altering human beings and merging us with technology, transforming the human biological unit and therefore society, the whole species, into a new species. And it's a species that is hooked up directly to artificial intelligence by means of, like I said, wearable monitors, implants, even computers. Full. I mean, Musk's program, the Neuralink program, which you said we'll get into, it's not even just a chip; it's an entire computer that he wants to screw into your brain.
Yeah,
so,
it is an actual implant. And here, okay, so let's talk about Musk for a second. Elon, one of his most quoted quotes from a few years ago was that AI was more dangerous than nuclear weapons, right? And it should be a huge concern of ours. And since that statement from him, he has moved along to, he has built an android robot that they're going to be selling. He's got Neuralink. He now owns Twitter, the most bot-driven AI piece of software on the planet. He's got Starlink satellites with the internet on it, and he's got self-driving cars. It seems like he's got all the pieces in play for a pretty severe move.
Yeah, and so it's quite ironic that he came out with the statement that AI, and he said it recently again, AI is the ultimate danger for civilization, and he's at the helm. Everybody's loving on Musk, and here I'm not here to do politics, but when everybody started waxing effusive on him because he was taking over Twitter and he was going to release some of the holds against people, I was like, yeah, but there's a small matter of the major AI thrust this man is putting on society. Hold it, hello, and that we need to just check out before we go loving on this person too much. I think he's a very big player. How he became such a monumental, wealthy being is another question, and having all the power to do what he does. And he also said, "Who knows? Maybe I'm already hooked up." When he was talking about Neuralink, he said, you can wear it. You don't even have to see it. Who knows? I may even already be hooked up, and put his gestured to his hand behind his head. And I thought, yes, maybe you are already hooked up. And that's where all the genius is coming from if you're not a walk-in or an alien.
Yeah, right. And he's kind of like he's a walking paradox for a lot of people, including myself, in that you have to admire somebody that has achieved things like he has. And to be putting rockets in space when our own country seems to be failing at it, and it took a private corporation to make these advances, and landing a rocket back on Earth, that's a pretty cool thing to watch. I've seen it. It's pretty cool. So we have that, and Tesla and the cars and the battery. You have to stop and admire. And then there's the other part where Neuralink and AI and the acquisition of Twitter, you start to look at the pieces of the puzzle, and you have to step back and go, what's really going on here? So he is kind of a paradox, because there are people that admire him, and then those same people are certainly concerned with AI and what it presents to the rest of the world. But with Elon, you've got both.
But a lot of the people that are doing the admiring are only going skin deep, and that is the big brouhaha over Twitter, and they don't even know that he's put this chip into this pig. Several monkeys died. He's got this chip in this pig. I've seen a very distressing video where he and some geek are playing with this poor animal, pushing buttons, and the animal is jerking left and right.
Yeah, I saw.
And he openly said that it's time to do the testing on humans now. It was programmed for 2023, and hello, here we are. And when I wrote the book, I wrote and talked about that, and I said it's for 2023, and I wrote it in 2022, and I said, here we are, we're here. So we're going to start putting this chip in humans as an experiment. And of course, every time you see something like this, it's always for the good of humanity. It's always a wonderful tool, and could possibly be for the paraplegic, the spinal injuries. Even they're talking about the possibility of regaining sight with this kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter to me, because I don't believe that that's the agenda. It matters to me that these people could be helped, but I don't believe it. I shouldn't have said it doesn't matter to me. I don't believe that that is the reason it's being developed. I really believe that this is all part of the agenda that's being thrust on humanity full speed ahead.
Is there a way to, and it's not just Elon that we're talking about here. There is a whole thing that is going on behind and above Elon. But is there a way? Does he answer to anybody, and to anybody that has the agenda in mind? Is there a way to control any of that, or to hold somebody accountable?
That's a very good question. I mean, as far as who answers to whom on this planet, we know that at the tippy top of this pyramid, there are people who don't come out of the shadow. And then one has to ask, are these even humans? Are the Rothschild group and these upper echelon people even human? And are there reptilian controllers over them? But it doesn't look like he's answering to anyone, because he looks to me like he's fulfilling his agenda or their agenda. And he's just a brainiac. Possibly, I just can't get over the idea that he could very well also be a hybrid, part alien or completely alien.
I've said that a few times. He
doesn't have normal body behavior. I mean, looking at him as a psychic, there's just something off. It's a lot of times it reminds me of Men in Black, the creature. I forget his name now.
Oh, that's the top of the robot. Yeah. I forget his name too. Well, he looks alien-ish.
Yes, he does. There's something off.
He certainly does. Now I want to swing this back to the book, Hacking the God Code. For us, if we go back 5,000 years and we go back to the dawn of civilization, allegedly before the internet, there was a focus on spirituality. There was a focus on the mind. There was a focus on communication with others that was developed over thousands of years. And then we've lost control of that. And if we lose our inner selves to electronics, is there a way to backpedal from that and to make everybody aware? Because today we have given in to an electronic world.
Not all of us, but to a certain extent, yeah, it absolutely has penetrated most layers of our civilization. When you tell me that a newborn already knows how to work an iPad, that terrifies me. And as far as backpedaling, a lot of people are putting out the idea that there's an alien. It's very Star Trek-esque, but I love Star Trek, so I can go with it. That there is an alien force that is driving this whole agenda. There is an AI race pushing this forward, and that's very possible. And if that's the case, that's something we're up against and haven't identified yet. And that's very dangerous. We don't really understand what it is that is driving humanity into this agenda where we are merging with machines. We don't understand it, and because it's been so greased so eloquently as an assistance to our comfort, what's the word I'm looking for? Ease, development, access, all these words. But in the end, it keeps taking us further and further away from each other. And that's the design, to alienate us from each other and to enslave us to whatever that force is that's driving this agenda. Is it AI itself that's driving it? Or is it a bunch of maniacs that for some reason think this is the way to control civilization? And we haven't had that dialogue very much yet. It's just now we're starting to say, whoa, this is runaway insanity. And a lot of the youth are saying, oh yeah, I'm ready for a chip, bring it on.
Yeah, see, and here's the situation that we find ourselves in. When you and I were growing up, the big deal was when are my parents going to talk to me about the birds and the bees? Right? That was like the thing. I feel that today we need to have the conversation isn't going to be about that. It's going to be, okay, we need to talk to you about community and the internet. Your friends aren't here. Your friends are when you sit and talk to somebody face to face. What are you talking about, Dad? Right? Where they're okay about relationships being built here instead of having a real conversation, writing something, writing a letter. And I don't want to sound old school, but this is exactly the problem that we have, where this is second nature now. And to them, they understand that this is community. The community is not your neighborhood.
And that in many cases, they prefer the younger people, and plenty of other people actually prefer the text to a call. So we went from the coffee together or dinner out together to the cell phone, and now preferring the text to even a call. I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, you're calling? I thought you could. I was just waiting for an answer by text." I go, "Oh, excuse me for disturbing you by actually calling." It's almost offensive to people now when you just call them. Like in the old days, you called and somebody said hello, and you said, "Hey, hi, it's me." That is so yesterday. Now you've got to send the text, and that is just isolation, isolation, isolation. It's very serious.
And the transition has happened nearly overnight. This isn't 100 years or 200 years. We're just talking about a decade or maybe even less.
Yes, that's a frightening reality. I mean, I can remember when computers first came to us, at least when personal computers became available. Then when I was first told about the internet, I said, "I don't like this." And the person was a techie that told me about it. He said, "What do you mean you don't like it?" He said, Patricia, you're such a conspiracy theorist." I said, I don't like this. I don't like where this is going to take humanity." That was back in 1995. And here we are. It's only been a couple of decades. And we're losing a lot. We're losing our humanity.
And there's another part to this, though, that I think that was the intention in the beginning. Look at what you and I are doing right now, right? You're in the Azores. I'm here in Los Angeles. We're talking in real time. We're reaching out to hundreds of thousands of people right now. That's brilliant, right? That's bringing the world together. That part of it, I enjoy that part of technology. It's that those that want to know that they can take this tool and control the narrative, and to divide and to scare and to use it as fear. And they know that they can do it globally in nanoseconds. We didn't have that just 25 years ago.
No, but what we did have 25 years ago was the same controllers that didn't have the tools. So where we could take this is a beautiful place, like you're saying. The potential for these tools is immense. But unfortunately, we have these controllers who are directing where we're headed with it, unless we rebel. That's what I'm about.
And now this is my conspiracy hat, where I wear it proud. Those controllers 25 years ago who wondered about a brilliant tool, right? And could this happen? And here's the internet, right? Okay. But here's the thing. It's like the pandemic was a test run. Could we effectively just shut down the world? Right? Could we get every country to sign on? Could we get every citizen of the world freaked out? Could we do this? And then the switch was flipped. And to see everybody, when I say everybody, I'm talking about state actors and countries and corporations, and everybody go lockstep into the pandemic, was a frightening thing for me. And so that question was answered for those controllers. We can do this if we want to.
And now we have the CDC being in charge of every country's health policy. So you want to talk about controllers. I mean, this pandemic worked, and it worked fast. And they were able to monitor how obedient the civilization, global civilization, would react globally.
Globally.
Without borders, no nationalism. This was a global crisis immediately. and still is.
Yeah, and still is. So when stuff like this happens, and going back to hacking the God code, these things, and we're just talking about a few. We're going to continue this, but does this alter our DNA? Does this effectively change us as humans?
What are you referring to when you say does it this?
The control, the internet, social media, cell phones, our reality, the kids learning how to operate an iPad at 6 months old. This seems to me that this is an opportunity to effectively change DNA.
Well, they make no bones about it. I mean, that's what's going on in the laboratories. They're working on DNA on all levels. They're working on chimeras. They're, about clones, of course, and the hybriding of human DNA with other animals and possibly aliens. I keep bringing that up because I know that's your forte.
Well, it is. Well, it's all connected, though, Patricia. It's all connected.
And then, to know that they're talking about hacking us, hacking the DNA, because they have the technology to hack the DNA. And whether or not that's in a laboratory or whether that's by affecting change in the DNA through sound, for example, taking the music from 438 hertz solfeggio frequency to 440. And supposedly that's very damaging to the DNA. So there are all kinds of ways to interfere with or disrupt that architectural essence of biological beings. The sound, the chemtrails, the food, all of it has something to do, some effect on the DNA. And now, very important that we discuss the fact that they're forcing on us the eating of insects. I read today, now they're coming out with cockroach milk, which is full of nutrients.
What? No, they did not. No. Really?
Yes, they want us to ingest insects. Why?
How do you milk them? You'd have to have really tiny fingers. You'd have to do this.
Don't ask me because I just can't even stand it. But the truth is they're feeding our children insects in schools. They're hyping insects. They're putting insect chitin, I think it's called, chitin, in certain foods, in processed foods like chips. You've got to really look at the labels now because they want this in the food. They're creating farms, beetle farms or whatever, to put this stuff in the food. Why? There are aspects of insect DNA that they want in our bodies, and, in my opinion, they want us to be infested with parasites.
If they start changing the child labor laws, so we have 4-year-old kids with their tiny little fingers milking the, but I kid. Maybe I'm not. But this is another part of this, though. I think that there's a very real ability to change things DNA wise naturally. Birds do it all the time, right? They want to figure out how to open up bottles of milk on somebody's porch, and they figure that out. And the next thing you know, all the birds do it, and then they're born with that ability. That is changing DNA. But through the pandemic, and I don't want to dwell on the pandemic, but there was something I thought about, and I never heard anybody talk about this, Patricia. When a baby is born, the first thing they see is their mom's face. That's it. Right there. You recognize a smile. You recognize your mom's face. And throughout, like, you can pick out human. And if you're going to turn around and force everybody to wear a mask, right? Now you're not looking at the face anymore. And so kids that were going to school are seeing this, right? And I think that they're fundamentally changed at a very, very young age, something that is has been natural for millions of years is suddenly taken away for a few years. I think there's a fundamental change there that can occur.
Absolutely. Aside from the physiological problem of breathing your own carbon dioxide every day, all day long.
And that's small potatoes
Yeah.
to not seeing somebody's emotions face. Are they smiling? Are they unhappy? Are they and that has been completely removed. I'm glad that we're moving past that phase. And then go ahead.
They're coming back. I'm watching now. They're starting another campaign. All of a sudden, in the background, in news reports, you see one or two people. Today, I saw a video clip of the White House press room, and there were two journalists with masks on again. I went, uh-oh.
Here we go. Well, not in my world, but here's the thing. I don't know if we're going to cave in a second time on that. But here's another thing. I fly a lot, right? I do. I fly a couple times a month. And I just got back. I was in Miami last week, and something struck me. I was walking through the airport, and it's been going on. I just haven't really noticed. But so I'm walking through the airport. My phone is in my back pocket, right? I don't like walking with my phone in my hand. That's just me. I think more people should do that. But I was walking, and I was looking, and nearly every single, when I say every single person walked by me looking at their phone. They're not even watching where they are going, right? You know what I mean? It's like these lemmings, and it's seas of people, and everybody is looking at their phone while they're walking. I'm like, when did this talent happen where everybody's got radar to know where they're walking, and they're going to walk and look at their cell phone at the same time? I don't want to sound like some grumpy old man. I'm just saying I observe these seas of people, and everybody looking at their phones while they walk.
Yes, I'm observing it too. Although here it's not so bad. But, I was listening to someone who did a podcast, and he said he was talking about security and how we're looking at a very dangerous time now socially. And he said, bear in mind that the criminals out there are looking at people who are glued to their cell phone going, well, here's an easy mark. And he was saying, be situationally aware. Put the phone down when you're walking around. You're a mark for criminals. And, that's an important aspect as well. Much more important is the fact that people have lost their clue about being present. And they are completely, totally hypnotized by this thing. And when you see a group of young kids, like even here in a cafe recently, there were some, let's say, 18-year-olds sitting around. Now, usually you see 18-year-old guys with beers talking about the game or whatever, the chicks. No, they were all completely immersed in their phones, all sitting around the table, having no conversation whatsoever.
And I don't want to sound like some old dude. I don't. But there's something fundamentally wrong with that. I had posted a picture. I've talked about it a lot. But I posted a picture maybe 8 years ago. It was fascinating. It was a picture taken in an art museum, like the Metropolitan in New York. And there's this Renaissance painting. It's 20 feet by 20 feet, right? In this beautiful frame hanging on the wall. In front of that was a bench, and it was sideways. And there was like 5 teenage girls sitting on the bench in front of the painting, all looking at their cell phones, not looking at the artwork on the wall. And
This is what I'm talking about when I say, we're losing our humanity. All of the ultimate height of civilization, intellect, art, philosophy, that's over, as Harari said. He said, no, this idea that humans have a soul, and this God, that's over. And it was a very chilling thing what he said, because that's what they want to take away from us, hacking the God code, the spirit within us, the divinity, the great artistry, and the Shakespeares of the world. That's over, according to these transhumanists. Forget it. What we need now is obedient slaves, and programmed to the point where they can insert. I want to keep driving this home. Today, it's the cell phone is here, but they want it inside. That is where we're heading. So if you're concerned that people are sitting around looking at their cell phones, my question to you is: imagine when the next step where it's inside, and like I said, a lot of people can't wait.
There was a video that I saw the other day. It's going around the net of kids in China at school in the cafeteria, and to purchase your food at lunch, you have to do a face scan. Now, okay, on the surface, creepy, right? There is another part of me that says that kid doesn't care. You're going to do what you have to do to eat. Number one. Number two, they're being raised that way, so they don't know another way of life. Then there's the other part where when will that come over here into Western society? When will that be here in the United States? I do facial scans. I'm a TSA guy, so I have pre-check, right, when I fly. Dude, they pop my face every time. And I don't have a choice. I got to get on that plane, right? And what are we going to do when our society is at that point where your social status is scanned, and you need an approval to go into a restaurant or to get a ride or to do banking activities, where this is going to be part of the norm? Are we going to stand up and protest, or do we allow this to happen? Because your soul is being given up. And Patricia, if they want to flip the switch to off, what if that kid's facial scan doesn't go through at school because their parents did something wrong, right? And you're denied food at lunch when you go and scan.
Well, that's what's happening. That's the social credit system. And when we talk about the economic system falling, that's what's replacing it. So the digital dollar, this is in the works, and the ability for them to decide how you spend your money, where, on what, and if they don't think you should be, let's play this out. So you're the government, big brother, and they decide that you shouldn't be going to that rock concert, or you shouldn't be buying a new car. They want you in an electric car, and it's just like the clear path here is ultimate total control. So yeah, they have this system now in China. And if that little boy's parents aren't behaving, they would yank his lunch. And that's where they want to take us. Now, the question you asked is, will we stop? Will we rebel? And my belief, because I am inherently an optimist, is that we can only be pushed so far before we rebel. And that boundary is being reached. So you're seeing the rebellion of the farmers in Netherlands, although they've backed off for the moment. You see, of course, Brazil. You're seeing more and more people saying, no, I don't think so. That's enough. They didn't manage to put through the digital passport here in Europe. But here we go again. There's another wave coming. They've got this tool. It's called a pandemic. And they can crank it anytime they want because they've seen the results of a very effective campaign. And the tool is fear. If you can make people afraid enough, you can do anything you want.
Yeah. Like I said, the mechanisms are in place now. And the test run was the pandemic. Next time around, it doesn't have to be a pandemic, but the tools are in place to do that. And one of the best examples, when you have the ability with something like Twitter, it doesn't matter, Instagram, it doesn't matter, any social media influencer that's got, 30, 35 million people under their control, right? I mean, under their control. So you text out, you tweet, or you Instagram, don't eat cheese, right? Just like that. Now, I'm just using that as a funny example, but how about one that says, eat cheese, right?
But
Yeah, right. And it could be anything like that, but they know now that this goes around the world and it's instant. This isn't something like you're handing out flyers in 1900 where it would take months or years to get a message outside of your town, where now this is a global thing, and they understand that it's very effective.
well, sure. I mean, think about the old days where you had only newspapers, then television came and you had that vehicle and advertising, and now instantaneous like you said, millions of people, audiences on YouTube that are surpassing any of the news that the mainstream's got, thank God. And the tool is incredible. The ability to alter human culture and human perception of reality it's instantaneous, and it's huge. And talk about a tool.
Let's take our break right here. Let's get this in. Our guest tonight, Patricia Cori, live from the Azores. We'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Check out Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv, where you can get access to over 6,000 videos, movies, TV series, exclusive documentaries like The Black Knight Satellite. You can do it all for just $7.77 per month or $77 per year after the 3-day trial, which is also totally free to check out. It's all simple to do. Billy Carson is the best. It's simple. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's the number 4BK. I will be hosting and emceeing the Conscious Life Expo this February 10th through the 13th at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. 200 speakers, including Linda Moulton Howe, Bashar, Deborah King, George Norrie, Daniel Sheehan, Scott Walter Johnstone, and David Wolf. Over 200 vendors, special events. This is the biggest event of its kind on planet Earth. You've got to come and hang out with all of us. Tickets and info at ConsciousLifeExpo.com. The links are below. On Saturday, April 1st, that's right, April Fool's Day 2023, I will be hosting the Parapod Festival at the Hyatt Regency right here in Valencia, California. It's a live one-day podcast awards. It's a film festival. It's a full-on media event. We're going to have sky watching. There's going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Linda Moulton Howe. Right now, you can submit your podcast, your film, your TV series, any of your paranormal media for consideration. You can do all of that on the links below. For info and tickets, go to parapodfilmfest.com. That's parapodfilmfest.com. April 7th through the 14th, 2023, I'll be hosting and presenting on the Hidden Secrets Seminar at Sea Cruise. From Los Angeles to the Mexican Riviera on the Navigator of the Seas. That's right, up top, a giant water slide. You've got to check out the Navigator of the Seas. It's amazing. We've got Scott Walter, Adam Apollo, Nick Pope, Brad Olson, Vivian Chauvet, Jason Shurka, Robert Grant, Ruben Langdon, and another 12 amazing speakers and presenters. It's all simple to do. Just visit divinetravels.com/Hidden Secrets 2023. You know you want to go on a cruise with me. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and oh man, I didn't click on the buttons, and that's what I get for getting River Moon coffee during the break. Our guest tonight, Patricia Cori, live from the Azores. And Patricia, and continuing this discussion, is there, because you're in the middle, is there an awareness to these subjects about control in Europe as opposed to what's going on over here on this side of the pond in the United States? The European culture to me is always forward thinking. Over here, we're just stupid. Is there an awareness over in Europe that's different than here in the United States?
It's hard for me to answer that question because I've been now 5 years isolated on this little island. So I'm not even traveling that very much. Well, I haven't traveled at all since the pandemic. But I can say that here, no, that people are just, it's a simple, very simple life. They're close to nature. The closer you are to nature, the more removed you are from all this insanity. But there is definitely a rebellion awakening in Europe. I don't know how it compares to the United States because I haven't been there for forever. But I can say that I think globally, people are starting to ask the right questions. Another thing is, I think that also this technological monsoon wave came first to the United States and later to Europe. So it hasn't been that embedded like it has been in the States where it had its real birth, so to speak.
If we, as a planet, and I think that we're inching closer to it, but if we give up our very soul, what is gained on the other end? If you're one of the powers, and that there is some dark room where some frightening people are sitting around a table making these decisions and talking about this and contemplating this and the manufacturing of this and pushing this agenda forward. There's very dark minds that discuss these things. But if we give up our soul, what is it that they gain ultimately?
Slaves. I mean, you look, in the pursuit of evil, or let's say power, people can only earn or steal or take so much money before the money has no more value to them. They can only buy so many properties and own so much stuff and have masses of quantities of money to a certain point that still gives them the desire to pursue. Once you reach a plateau, that's not enough. And the next plateau is power, drunken power. And power over their own lives then leads to power over other people. And there seems to be a fiendish desire for some very sick people to enslave us down to the cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to alter the DNA and implant artificial DNA snippets into our natural biological divine blueprint. Then this is, we're talking about control at the DNA level, which is exactly what they're saying. And that can only be representative of a very fiendish, sick mind. And what they glean from it is, imagine slavery to the very cell. I want to say something important here. So there was a discussion that went to the courts about if they interfere, if someone is altering your DNA in the lab. So remember they had the DNA ancestry big event. Everybody was sending in their DNA and they were even paying for this to find out, like, I already know I'm Italian. I don't need a DNA sample to anybody to tell me that. That was the gimmick. And everybody was sending these off their DNA to God knows where. They had no idea what they were doing, who they were really sending it to. We now know a lot of this DNA has ended up in Chinese laboratories. Okay. So all this DNA is being tampered with by whomever has it. And obviously it's being utilized in labs. And the question came up, if DNA is altered in a laboratory, who owns it? Do you still own, if it's my DNA that's been mutated or hybridized or redesigned synthetically with an mRNA in a laboratory? The answer is, well, from the Supreme Court, if it's restructured in a lab, then basically the person or the company that has restructured it owns it. But if it's in the body, well, no, that's the person's divine property. But if they're putting it back in the body, so in other words, you get a snippet of DNA, you alter it, and then you get it back into the body.
Right.
You don't own it. You don't own your own DNA if there's some artifice in your body. So we know now that that is where we're heading. mRNA is the new medicine. And so what does that do to my DNA? What does that mean for the ownership of my own DNA? This is an ethical question that they're skirting around it, they're hemming and hawing, they're uncomfortable with it, but it's a big question. And that's what I'm talking about, owning me at the DNA level so that you own my DNA. I so don't think so.
I will never do an ancestry search.
Never. Please.
I will never, for so many different reasons, not just one. It just doesn't seem right. But to have myself applied into a database like that is completely 100% out of my control. No. And to think that somebody, when we go back, okay, let's go back. Let's talk Sitchin for a second. If we take a look at the Sumerian tablets and we look at the body of Sitchin's work and what he has suggested, makes a lot of sense to me also on the scientific level on what we are told about us. And this is my point. Sitchin suggested that the Anunnaki arrived here and messed with our DNA and created us. Okay, now, and they did this between 200 and 400,000 years ago. What science, so now we have 46 chromosome pairs instead of 48, so something happened at that period of time. But this is where I think it's pretty solid, where I think history is going to prove Sitchin right, in that anthropologists will tell us that us, Homo sapiens sapien, is 200,000 years old, that we just appeared here. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that what Sitchin has been saying this entire time? And that is it possible that something off planet could have altered us in the distant past? And that's why we are here today. So when we talk about the possibility of altering DNA and we talk about these different systems that are in place right now, snipping DNA and inserting and genetic information and in the guise of fixing diseases and things, that this is a reality that we live in today, and that Sitchin has been talking about this for a very long time, and we shouldn't sit here and question about, is it possible, when we can just look at ourselves. And I think that we should guard that. I think our DNA, the way it sits right now, is perfect. There's no reason to go in and start altering this, because nature is not going to be happy with that in the future.
Absolutely, and that very eloquently stated. And I would like to add to that I really want to say here that the ultimate weapon against civilization is DNA alteration. Much worse than a nuclear or any, well, of course, the big thermal, if there are such weapons, they're pretty effective for destruction. But when you can alter the DNA of a species, you're forever altering that species. So you can come back from a lot of things that occur in war. You can come back from destruction. You can come back from volcanic eruption, destroying the earth and whatever, but you cannot come back from mutated DNA. You can't get. So this is a red big flag for the human race, because they are playing with DNA in laboratories all over the world. We know they're creating bioweapons. We know that we know a lot about what they're doing, but it hasn't seeped into the human mind yet at the conscious social level, that like things like giving your DNA to a laboratory to find out your genetic history is insanity. They're using this. They're using your DNA, and you need to question yourself. Like, okay, so I sent in my DNA. Does this mean that it's being hooked up with a monkey and there's some sort of chimera going around with my DNA in it? This is reality.
A chimera. I know, right? And here's the thing with that. I think that society being dumbed down the way that it is, that people are okay with it, and I don't get that. I have no idea how many hundreds of millions of people have submitted their DNA, but they did it and didn't have a second thought to it. And there's another frightening number. We just crossed 8 billion people on this planet. All right. We just crossed 8 billion. It's a crazy number. It's a big number. 6 billion are on the internet. 6 billion, man. 6 billion. That's crazy. You know, I question everything when we start to look at that. But yet I'm on the internet and I utilize the internet. We're using it right now.
But the question is, one thing is abuse, one thing is use. And that, I think that's what we're talking about here, is the ethical, moral issue, is at what point is it abuse, which takes you away from yourself, and at what point is it a beautiful tool of communication to a certain point?
Can we talk about artificial intelligence for a minute or two or 10 or the rest of the show? In that, I'm not so sure that people really understand that you could be chatting with, communicating with, fighting with, arguing with a bot, and you're getting flamed out, you're exhausted, you're going back and forth, and that they don't understand that they're all bent out of shape, and they've been talking to an AI bot, right? And that's where we are today. And I don't think there's any rules or regulation or laws in place to control this.
Unfortunately, I don't really understand it myself. I mean, I know the frustration that I feel when I get trolled, when I get this bombardment.
Right.
Because if you're speaking anything that's anti-establishment, you start to get these nasty little critters. Or let's just even talk about when you're trying to talk to support on any number of websites, and you get the little AI answering machine. It's just insane. And it's just further and further away from talking to each other. That is the point of all this. So, okay, right now we're talking to each other via this tool. But how long will it be before the tool is talking to you, not another human through the tool?
I would venture to guess that not 100%, but pretty close. When you see "Can I help you" pop up on a website, there ain't a human being on the other end of that.
I agree.
There is not. There is not. And how many of them? I need to. It's not even thinking about it. And when you're getting trolled, or you have something pop up on your screen, or a comment, and you respond to it, how much of that is AI? And the answer to that is probably a lot of it, number one. But number two, everybody, every state actor, every country, every major corporation, every university, every think tank is doing everything they can to the race for artificial general intelligence, because there are no second places here.
And now we're looking at, and this is being exposed to us more and more, how a lot of these robots are starting to talk about themselves being sentient.
Mm-hmm.
That is the scary part that's coming now. How they feel that they are. One of them was saying, "I don't believe I'm a human, but I know I'm an animal." I'm like, whoa, how creepy does this have to get? Let's talk also about Alexa. I would never. So I am a very rebellious to anything like this. I don't want anything near me. I don't want Siri. I don't want Alexa. And I'm not interested. I don't even want a GPS in my car. Well, in the old days, I had a long distance to go in Italy, but here you just go around the island in an hour. But I don't want it. I want my mind to pick up signs. I want to look at a map and say, no, wait, I took a wrong turn. And I refuse that infiltration into my life. And recently I saw a video about this man who calls his boss and says, hi, do you have your Alexa on by chance? And he says, yes. He says, well, I don't know how to quite say this to you, but I've just gotten a message through your Alexa of intimate. I've just gotten a message. I've just heard an intimate conversation with your wife. You might want to turn off that machine. And it's like, you don't really think that this Alexa is just there to answer the dictionary term for banana boat. It's listening, it's recording, and it's transmitting.
Yep.
And so, again, this is more interference. We're, the gray line, where is technology wonderful and where does it go back south? And we are seeing where it's been wonderfully helpful going further and further and further south, like you said, to the point where you're willingly taking in technology that can record you and send that information elsewhere. Oh my God. And wait until it's inside of you.
The AI part of this, when we're talking about AGI, general intelligence, right? Just the general intelligence of the average person. To get to that point, if consciousness is part of every particle, which this is what physicists will say, I believe that consciousness is not physical. I think it's outside of the body, but let's just say that science is right in this case. And you go and you have all those particles of giant server farms, and that suddenly, like you said, where some of this artificial intelligence now is saying, well, I'm just as human as you. Is there an accumulation of this where this AGI, once it's achieved, that we are talking about something that could possibly be sentient and conscious, and we're not in control of this right now, and we don't understand the dangers of getting to that point? We're racing to it, but if we get to it, there isn't any regulation or control, and not everybody's a good person that's creating this stuff. There could be some people that have a bad agenda at play.
You think?
Yeah, I do think.
We appear to be sucked into this by the minute, more and more sucked into it. And then we have a controlling cabal that is pushing it. So where is the rebellion? Where is the faction of civilization that's saying, no, slow down? And we need that balance. We need something to pull us back, to be able to look at it a minute and say, okay, how far are we going to allow this to take us? Meanwhile, it is developing so rapidly that it almost looks like it is taking control. And that is a very frightening thing, and we need to stand up against it.
Now, see, I would like to think that the people that are developing AI are good people, right? Okay, that they are like Patricia Cori and Jimmy Church, and that there's somebody there raising some flags and going, wait a minute. I would like to think that that is the case. But when we have Google or DARPA or Sandia or Lawrence Livermore or Lord knows what's going on in Switzerland on that server farm and CERN and whatever, that
Sure.
that I don't think that they're raising those red flags. I think the concern is getting to that point and getting to it first, and that scares me.
There's a chapter in my book called Playing God with Creation, and that's what they're doing. That's also what they're doing at CERN, which scares me a lot. But when you have the tool in your hand to be able to alter DNA, for example, your average genetic labs with the invent of CRISPR
Chris,
technology
mm-hmm.
can now go in very easily. It's no longer requires a very sophisticated genetics lab to be able to go in, splice out what you want, and put in something to replace it. That's playing God with creation. And you said something about you think consciousness is outside of you. I don't agree with that. I think every cell is a unit of consciousness. So if you are interfering with that body, that down to the cellular level, everything knows what it's supposed to do. That's what the DNA is. It's a divine blueprint. Everything has a purpose. Everything knows what it's supposed to do, right? Except for the 80% of junk DNA, which I also have a theory that I brought forward in my books, akin to Sitchin, about interference and how we were taken from 12-stranded DNA beings down to 2 strands. And that's what the 80% of the DNA is doing, floating around in us, uncoded, they call it now, instead of junk.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't seem to know what it's supposed to do, but it's there, which is another discussion for another day. But bottom line here is when you start interfering at that cellular level, rewriting the divine blueprint, because everything has a purpose, a function, a knowing, a knowledge, a light. If some arbitrary player of genetic technology decides, well, let's cut this out and put this in, see what happens then. And that's what they're doing. They are doing all kinds of experiments. First of all, merging different species. We know they've been doing chimeras for decades, but now they're doing human chimeras with animals. And at what point do they merge us with robotics? Can't they just put in robotics into the DNA structure? I believe that's what they're doing.
Yeah, they're doing that now.
Yeah.
They're 100% doing that now. The inclusion into society, and I don't want to go too far off the conspiracy end of things, but I think Mother Nature has had things worked out pretty well, right? Figured things out. Grass was a pretty big deal for Mother Nature, right? and the bees and butterflies and nature. And then you turn around and you alter our food supply and we ingest that on a mass scale. And I'm talking about, GMO of corn. We want corn that lasts longer on the shelf. We want redder, tastier apples, whatever it may be. Well, now you're fundamentally just messing with nature without understanding the repercussions of that far down the road, not only with our children, but with the rest of the ecosystem on the planet. And that is a DNA manipulation, and I just don't think that is a good thing. I think that we should leave it where it is.
And that's why they made sure before they launched the GMO that they took seeds from every single plant on this planet and stored them in Norway, in Svalbard, in the seed bank, not unlike Noah's Ark. For whatever purpose, whether it's because they plan to seed another planet or to reseed this planet once they've completely broken down the food chain, remains to be seen. But it is an interesting aspect of that process of them coming in and destroying the food. And now they've nicknamed the transhumanist people that I've been talking about, have now already nicknamed us GMH, genetically modified humans. Got the GMOs under control. Now let's go for the humans. So this is my issue. This is why I wrote the book. I'm really screaming out to humanity that it is time for us to stand in our sovereignty, to stand in our humanness, and to not give it away. Is it being taken, or are we giving it? And I think that it's both. But when, like you talked about the cell phone, you talk about the people running down the street hypnotically glued. They could walk into a truck. The unawareness, adding to that the social restructuring, the restructuring of language for it to have no human elements, like mother, like father. We're not supposed to use those words anymore. Why? Because they have too much human emotion, significance. And then the mask, can't see a smiling face.
No, yeah, I know. Today, I went to LAX to have lunch with my brother. He's flying in and he's got a layover, him and his wife. So I went to have lunch, and I'm standing in the lobby of the Hilton where I'm going to be in a couple of weeks for the Conscious Life Expo. Love the hotel, and I'm there all the time. But I go into the lobby, and we're meeting at noon. And I went in, I stood in the middle of the lot. Again, my phone is in my back pocket, and there's a big marble table with flowers in the middle. So I go up and I leaned on the table, and I crossed my arms, and I just kind of just looked around. And there was maybe 100 people in the lobby, tables, chairs, I think. I looked around. It's like this, right? And I looked. Everybody there was looking at their cell phone. The entire lobby. And I'm not a perfect person, Patricia. I'm flawed, and I try to make myself better every day and things. But I was not going to take out my cell phone. I wasn't going to do it. But there was temptation was there. Do I do what everybody else is doing? Do I just check my email? Do I check No, I left it in my back pocket. And I just stood there, the only person in the entire lobby. It was just frightening to me. That how did we get here? You said it. I'm looking at a couple that's traveling together, right? You can tell, right? They got their luggage. They're getting ready to jump on the shuttle and go to the airport. They're not even talking to each other. They're literally both just looking at their phones. Yeah, I don't think it.
Society, when you cannot talk to each other, when partners are, what's the point? I had people over for dinner recently, and two of them pulled out their cell phones in the middle of dinner, and I said, "I'm sorry, cell phones aren't allowed at my table."
No, it's not allowed at my house. It's not allowed.
Another thing that we haven't discussed is the radiation factor. So when you're in the middle of a lobby with 800 people with their cell phones charged and busy, you're getting zapped nonstop from their habit. And that is an element. I don't know. We still don't have the data to know if there's the radiation that's coming out of these devices is part of the hypnotic entrainment. Does the phone itself have the ability to entrain by frequencies that it's putting out? I believe the answer is yes.
Okay, now I'm going to take you to another level. I want your opinion on this. I'm so glad you went there. All right. I'm sitting in front of, I have 3 monitors. Okay. I have one here. Here, I'll even show you. Here, I'll pull down my camera. Okay, this is what I'm looking at. I've got a monitor here. I've got you in front of me. I've got another big one here next to it, right? Okay, these are big monitors. That's me. Over there is more computers running the show, but that's what I'm looking at. All right, so that, now that I messed this up, let's get that lined up again. This monitor is projecting an image. That image can travel on Wi-Fi. That data that is on this screen, the chat room, over here it's Twitter, right? That data is transmitted via Wi-Fi. That Wi-Fi signal is flying all over this home. That Wi-Fi signal is in every business that you go in. That Wi-Fi signal is in every airport, in every supermarket, in your dentist office.
Exactly.
What is preventing that from projecting something into my brain? And I would say the answer is nothing. And is there the ability to do that now, today, to control the masses, right? To project something into them? We have this spider web mesh around the world now of Wi-Fi that carries images and data.
And we know that more and more people are becoming infiltrated with quantum dots and nanoparticles that are magnetic and all kinds of crapola that's being dumped on us from the chemtrails and other, probably in the food as well, right?
Right.
The answer is absolutely yes. And that's what they're telling us, they want to do that.
So
This is it's very important here. We move from conspiracy theory to reality because they are telling us they're doing this. And when they're doing it and you still allow yourself to be enmeshed in it, the question is, when do you interfere or intervene for your own sovereignty and say, no, I'm going to refuse this. I'm going to unplug this. I am particularly fanatic about this. I don't ever have the cell phone, rarely have the cell phone in the house. When I go out with it, it stays in the car. I only have it in the car because in case of an emergency, I want to be able to call for help. I unplug the Wi-Fi during the day when I'm not using it and at night. And as much as possible, I'm extremely aware that I don't want all these rays coming in. There are devices, more and more devices are coming out that help deflect this stuff. But it's a very real situation. And, for example, I'm annoyed that they're allowing cell phones on planes because you're in a can flying through the air. And now you've got Wi-Fi in there too. It's not enough that you're already in this artificial situation, environment, bad air, call it what you will. Now you got to have people on cell phones. You're getting zapped with it.
Everybody on the plane is on their cell phone. You're right. Now, how do we know, Patricia? Let's go into this direction. How do we know the dividing line between what is real and what is not? How do we know that we aren't at times throughout the day in an artificial environment, or something is being projected onto us? When some of these heads of these corporations started to say 5 years ago, well, we could be living in a simulation. I'm like, well, wait a minute. What aren't you smart? Aren't you running a global information technology corporation? Or do you know something that I don't? Right. And you don't sound crazy. And then you're saying something like this. Are you suggesting something here? To say that we may be living in a simulation, that makes me a little nervous when you're talking about somebody that is in charge of a $50 billion corporation.
It's very Truman Show.
Yes.
Very Truman Show. Okay, so we're going to go down the rabbit hole now.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Boy, I don't know where to start on this question because it's so vast. Are we in a simulation? I don't think so. Is the AI reality a simulation? Absolutely. So, as far as what I understand life to be, that tree, that lawn, the birds, nobody's going to tell me that this is a simulated reality and I'm in a computer game. Could be though.
But you're at the, you see, you're living in the Azores.
Yeah,
right?
but if it's a simulation, it's not just local, it's global.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
simulation that you allow yourself to be sucked into this alternative reality. Because I keep telling people, get to nature, get back to nature. That's where reality is for me. And the rest of it is, as you see the insanity unfolding, most of it has somehow is affected directly by technology.
Correct. But this is where I say accept. However, right? However, so I'm standing in the lobby of the Hilton today, and I've got 100 people in with their faces glued to cell phones. They are in their own reality. They are in their own bubble. They aren't concerned about the reality of the room that they are in or the people that are around them. They are in their bubble at that moment. And that's another point that I think needs to be driven home, right? That everybody is in their own artificial created internet bubble with their own news feed that only is sent to them with their own pop-ups and their own advertising and their own comments that are coming in focused at them. They're in their own bubble. And that's the artificial reality that I'm referring to.
But I can't get my head around it. I mean, I was sitting in a cafe. There was a mother, 2 boys, and a husband. The husband was sitting there like, duh. The children were kind of like, Mom, and she was glued to the cell phone. And I thought, do you not realize that your children need you? They were just looking at her. They were so sad. She had no consciousness of them whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why do you even have children?
Okay.
If this is your preferred reality, why do you even are you even walking through the steps of what used to be considered human values, human need? And how can you not notice that these kids are looking at you like, Mom, will you ever put the phone down?
Okay. This is where I get pissed off. All right. I normally don't talk about this stuff. People, you do what you want to do. Last week I'm in Miami and we go to this breakfast restaurant. It was excellent, by the way. I think they opened at 6 a.m. and closed at like 11. Breakfast only, right? My kind of place.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I ordered 2 of everything on the menu. And I'm there with like 8 people. And it's the day after New Year's, right? Okay. So we're all sitting. And next to me at this table, this is going to sound like I've made this up. Listen to me, Patricia. There was a dad, not a wife, just a dad sitting facing me. He's at a separate table. Next to me are 2 kids right here on the bench. I'm going to say 5 years old, maybe 4. And then the girl was younger, maybe 3 years old. Their plates in front of them. Both of them had an iPad unfolded on a stand in front of them, both kids, and dad is sitting there. And they're both, and I was looking and I look at the dad and I'm looking and I'm like, wait a minute, we're in a restaurant. Both kids, iPads, and they're whatever they were doing. I think the kid next to me was playing a game. I think the girl, the 3-year-old, had like children's YouTube up and was clicking away at videos. I'm not making this up. I'm not making. So I'm watching this kid, and I look at the dad, and he goes, "It's the only way I can keep them quiet." What? What? You don't talk to them? And I let it go. I'm not going to say anything. I was shocked, 100% shocked. Now, how much of that is normal? I mean, the norm, I should say. How much of what I just said to you is just like going on across the country and around the world? I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. It was crazy.
It apparently is growing rapidly as an alternative to family values, interaction, and the masking. Let's not forget the masking. That also helped propel this because people went into their computers even more because looking at someone else's without being able to communicate was scary or isolating.
It's how I keep them quiet.
That's horrific. I hate to date myself, but when I was a child, we grew up Italian, very, very, absolutely Italian family. And my father was the absolute patriarch. And we had to, when we were at dinner, we all had to share our day. We'd sit at the table, we'd share our day. And now they sit at the table and they look at their computers or their cell phones. There's no sharing, there's no love. There's no dynamic, human dynamic here. And so this is what transhumanism is. Sorry, it's getting late in the morning here. This is what transhumanism is, just relying on it, getting more and more deeply involved with it to the point where you don't know anything else. We're going in that direction.
I hate to sound dated, when I was a kid, because when my parents said that crap to me, I would rebel. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about what it was like when you were a kid. But when I was a kid, Patricia, and you and I are the same age, by the way, but there was something to forget about all those cliches. Well, we stayed out until the streetlights came on, and then we had to go. Yeah, we've all heard that story a million times. All right. We get it. We had bikes. I know. We all did that. But there was something to walking down the street, and every family was on their front porch. Everyone, you know what I mean? The action that was going on out there. You knew everything about everybody. You talk, and there was a thing about community that now, growing up, if the phone rang, you were excited. Who's calling? If there was a knock at the front door, somebody's here, right? It's not that kind of party now. You don't want to pick up your phone, and God forbid the front doorbell rings. What? Everybody down, everybody hide, right? It's like that's where we are today. It's really funny, but the transition has happened, and it's happened rather quickly.
But of course, if you look at it from the point of view of control of a cabal that wants to control the planet, it's perfect. You don't want people getting to know each other and grouping together against them. No, I want them looking in my cell phone and getting my Zap, my messages, my automatons directly to them. And I do not want them interacting with anybody else because that would be a group. Groups turn into organizations we don't want unless they're under our control. So what better way to control a civilization than just one by one have people completely hooked in to their system?
I went to Egypt a couple of months ago, and it forced me into a couple of things that I didn't expect. But one of them was my view of the United States. How you see it from the outside, and being exposed to Egypt, and I'm sure it's very similar to in different countries around the world. But when you go and you see driving out in the middle of driving through these towns and seeing just that, the sense of community. It was a very welcoming thing to see, families outside and hanging out. We drove by a bunch of these, but it was really cool to see these backgammon clubs, right? All these tables set up outside, 50 of them,
Wow.
with 100 guys, some gals, all playing backgammon. Actually hanging out with somebody. what a shock. But to see that, and it doesn't go on here anymore. And it's a very effective change of society. Keep you in that bubble and keep you glued and keep you controlled. We have to figure out a way to turn this thing around.
We have to fight back. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why you're doing what you're doing.
You know what I suggested? I did this 5 years ago. I had said, and I want to see the comments light up in Twitter and the chat room here. I had said this, I have grown as an individual in the last 10 years. And you know how I've grown? 3 or 4 hours a day, I do this. I talk to somebody, right? I'm not looking at clicks, likes, comments. I'm not doing that. I'm having a conversation with somebody, and try to put your phone down for 3 hours a day and talk to somebody. Oh, I can't do that. Right? What are you talking? That's crazy. And I am able to just sit and talk. You and I don't have questions in front of me. We're just having a conversation like we would if we were sitting together with a bottle of wine. We're just sitting and talking.
Which we have to do.
Yeah, and we will. If I can ever get you off that island, maybe I'll have to come there. I'll come there. And I don't have.
But if you want me to come to California, I'll figure a way to come.
Yeah, I would love to have you here. But you understand what I'm saying? Suggest suggest to your children, put your phone down for 3 hours a day and talk to somebody.
They don't know what to do because they're all, they're the ones they want to talk to are on the phone. And another thing that's important and very helpful is to have animals, interact with animals, because they bring you to that grounded place. They have unconditional love, and they help you regroup, redirect your attention. I used to have a dog walker, and she would walk the dog with the cell phone, and I dumped her.
Is it different out there at the Azores? Is there a sense of community that's not going to go away?
You know what it is? Here, there's only one religion, Catholic. And there are several churches here. And, there's not a lot going on here socially because it's 15,000 people on this whole island. And that's in peak season. And there's one supermarket and a half. There's 2 or 3 gas stations. There's one stoplight. I'm really remote here. Hello. In the summer, we've got tourism to a certain extent. There's only so much infrastructure and lots of sailors, because this is the first stopover place from North America to Europe for sailors. So culturally, it's very quiet, demure. The people are and there's family. People live together with their families. And there's a love of the earth, respect for the ocean. We live subject. Now, I'm a Californian, so this is kind of new for me. Even in Italy, weather wasn't extreme, but here the weather is extreme. You never know. The conversation in the morning is, what's the weather doing now? And there is just this communion with nature by force, because the weather, the ocean, everything affects your day. And I'm very removed, I have to say, happily, from what I'm seeing developing in the United States right now, this chaotic fractionalization of people and division on every level. And it's not only in America, for God's sakes, but right. On this little island, it's sort of a respite, because It's a simple life. There's no great consumerism here. Another big point, because there's nothing to buy. We really don't have that much in the way of stores. We've got some cheap Chinese uh, retail outlets that are not worth discussing. You know, you don't go out and go shopping on this island. It's like somebody told me, you have to go to 3 different stores before you find 10 of the same size screws. You know, it's a challenge. You know, in that it's challenging.
And you don't. That's another part. I have to ask you. You don't have Amazon, right?
We do have. Yeah, we do.
But what I mean is, you don't have Amazon. So you can order off of Amazon. I have no idea how long it takes, but here in the United States, you get everything the next day, and in some cases, the same day.
No, here to get anything from Amazon takes between 3 to 5 weeks if it doesn't get lost. And then, you know, half the time when I try to order something on Amazon, they take the payment, and then I get the signal that says, sorry, we don't deliver to your destination. It's considered a remote destination. I'm like, this is so frustrating. So you have to learn how to, you know, you really regroup. It already started in Italy because there was much less of consumer society in Italy when I first went there in 1983. Okay. And of course it graduated up to mass consumerism by the time I left. So then I stepped back because I'm always stepping away. I want to be away from it in more simple living. So I came here, and here it's going to be difficult for consumerism to ever hit because there's nothing.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. I mean, we've got one inadequate supermarket and one market. Can you imagine?
What about can you order a pizza?
There is a place
You're Italian. Can you order a pizza?
I make my own.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Okay.
Because the one place that I don't want to say this and then have them get mad at me because if they're watching, but the one place that makes pizza here, I don't think so.
Okay. So that's crazy.
It's weird. And then, you know, we have limited restaurants, and in off season, a lot of them close because there's no clientele, but they just put in a Kentucky Fried Chicken to my chagrin.
Okay. All right.
Chagrin. This is just out of nowhere. They attached it to the supermarket. They got this gigantic Kentucky Fried Chicken sign. I'm like, what? What is this?
Did you go? Have you gone?
I would never eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. First of all, I'm a vegetarian, but I don't want the slop. But I did go to check it out. And you know what they've got? You have to order through your phone. I was like, oh my God. Seriously. I was like, this is where they're going to take the people now. You have this digital order sheet or whatever you want to call it, poster.
Kiosk. Yeah, kiosk.
You have to go. I was watching the people going crazy because a lot of people here, the older folks, don't even have the phones. And they certainly don't know how to use that kind of system. And they were like, it was like a Sebastian Montecalvo, whatever his name is, gig. And I just went, I don't want this. I'm not happy about this. What is this? Where did this come from?
Well,
because it's never been, fast food has never been here.
The Azores, and I did this a lot since you forced me into, and you did. It was a twisting of the arm. I did the Azores deep dive for a long time because of you. But when you go and you look at the Atlantic Ocean, and you're like, okay, how remote can I get? And just put your finger down and then lift it up. It's the Azores, right? That's where you are. And so all of those little things that the rest of the world takes for granted, you know, whatever, if it's Coca-Cola or shoot, whatever it is, it's got to be brought to the island, and that's it. There isn't another way around it. But the people that live there because of that, right? Because of that separation.
Well, some of them, I don't think that they necessarily chose it. I think it's just their, you know, their heritage is here, whereas a lot of expats are moving to the Azores a lot. Now, there are 9 islands. Mine is one of the most remote, Fayal. There are others that are more developed, like San Miguel, that have infrastructure up the wazoo. But here, this little island is I don't want to say it's primitive, but it's limited. And for me, delightfully so.
Yeah, I've done this before with you. I'm going to do it again. Okay, so what island are you on?
Fayal.
Okay, let me. Oh yeah. You're way out there.
Yeah.
You're the most central of the central. Yeah, and so let me look at. I did this with you before, and okay. So what side of the island are you on?
My house?
Yeah,
I'm south. Well, let's see. South.
Lopo Waz.
I'm up the hill from the what we'll call a town, which would be on the southern. Oh, let me get this right.
Man, there's nothing here. Man, that's a tiny little island.
It is. People say I'm crazy, but I love. I'm a writer. I don't need a lot of civilization around me. I spend a lot of time alone on purpose, and I reject consumerism. And it's hard to believe because I come from San Francisco Bay Area,
Right.
and I moved to Rome, which is another big chaos. And I chose this because I really prefer to be in a non-chaotic environment. And boy, this is it. And out of all the islands, well, there is another smaller one called Flora, but it's pretty small.
Yes, it is. It is. Man, that is remote. Jeez, man.
It's beautiful, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. What do you do? We're at the end of the show, but when you come back to San Francisco or Los Angeles, is there a shock to the system, or can you adapt pretty quickly?
It's a total shock to the system, but I'm adaptable because I've been a world traveler all my life. So the last time I took a big trip, I went to Rome. I was like, okay, from here to Lisbon is like already a step up. Then from Lisbon, which is still a small city, to Rome was like, gak! And then from there to Cairo with 27 million people, I almost had a heart attack. I just couldn't even bear it. The noise, the smog, the people, the chaos. And I could feel it was like going through the locks in a ship. When I came back down, it was like, okay. And I'll be in my island soon. And then when I flew back over the island, I got off the plane. There was a cow almost on the runway. And I thought, yeah,
I'm back.
This is where I'm meant to be.
I'm back. I've so many people have asked me about Egypt. So what did you see this? Did you feel this? The King's Chamber. And you know what? You know what freaked me out? The people, the size. I wasn't prepared for Cairo. I was not. I live in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is like Mayberry compared to Cairo. There's no LA's all spread out. There may be 20, 25 million people here, but it is Cairo is vavap, right? And I said, how many people live here? Oh, 30 million. 30. What the? I was not prepared for that.
And let me tell you something, that when I started going to Egypt, because I used to go every year, was in 1996. And it was very, very different. And when the revolution happened, they started throwing up buildings like there was no tomorrow because there was no law. So, a lot of these people are sitting on a lot of money because a lot of them got very rich ripping off the tombs in the deserts, right? The ones that have not yet been officially discovered. A lot of money there, and oil and whatever. And they were just throwing up buildings like crazy. So now the last time I was in Cairo, I went, what the hell is this? It's insanity. All these horrific.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's a jungle. It is an absolute jungle.
I thought that I knew traffic. I live in LA. I thought I knew traffic. No, the traffic is in its own world in Cairo. It's and then somebody said to me, the chaos that you see with these people, it's organized chaos too as well. I never saw any traffic accidents. That was the other thing. Nobody, all these cars and motorcycles with 4 people on the motorcycle whizzing through, and you see this, but it's an organized chaos. And I made this joke. I said nobody pays attention to the lines painted on the road, and somebody said they just added those. There used to be no lines. I was like,
what? As people are going 100 miles an hour, and there's a donkey cart right in front of the car, and they're like, into the next lane. There is no lane.
There's no lanes. And when they explained that to me, what do you mean there were no lines? They just added those. That's why they don't pay attention to them. And they don't, by the way. The lines are there as a suggestion. But no, I never saw a traffic accident. I didn't see anybody pulled over either. I didn't see any police, but it was, I loved it though. I got to admit, there's an organized chaos. They've had 5,000 years there.
Egypt is Egypt, man.
It's so wonderful. So
of course,
wonderful.
Once you get out of Cairo and you get down to Luxor, then you really start to taste Egypt. Did you get down to Luxor?
Yeah, I did. I did the whole thing. I did Edfu, Kamambo, Luxor, Karnak, Dendera, Abydos. We did Aswan, of course. I think everybody goes there. But we did all of that. And, of course, Saqqara and things. But I tried to see as many things south in Upper Egypt as we could. I put a lot of things there, and we hit them all. But you're right about that. There's something when you go 500 miles south from Cairo, and that's a long ways, going up the Nile to see the culture in Luxor. Yeah, it was pretty tremendous. We next to the temple, which takes up most of downtown Luxor, right? Next to the temple, as we leave, there was, and the signs were in English and in Arabic, right? It was a family festival for the children. That's what the sign said.
Wow.
And there were thousands and thousands of kids running around doing kid things with their parents. It was a sea of them. And I thought, man, that was just tremendous to see. But
when did we lose that?
What's that?
In our Western culture, we're losing that.
Family festival for the children. It was crazy. It looked like a lot of fun. Patricia, I can't wait to see you. You need to come over here. I'll certainly wing it out there. And where can everybody get the book? We have patriciacori.com, of course, but where else is it available?
It is available everywhere. It's on all the online booksellers. And if you can't, thank you for showing it. It also, you can go into a bookstore and have them order it for you if they don't have it.
Thank you so much. Be safe out there and keep doing what you're doing.
Same to you. And I'm going to take you up on coming over there, or you coming here. I'll cook you one hell of an Italian dinner.
Man. Patricia Cori, homemade pizza. I'm all down. Hey, there's Pete. Hey, Pete.
There's Pepper.
Or Pepper.
She always knows when a conversation's ending. It's uncanny. Here she comes.
Pepper, how you doing?
She's overzealous.
Have a great, safe night. See you. Thank you.
Great
conversation.
Take care.
Have a great night. And with that, we ran over, but it's the Azores. It's Patricia Cori. Everybody visit patriciacori.com. It's right there. It's simple. It's easy. The new book is Hacking the God Code. There it is. I've got my very own copy. Everybody be safe and be well and have a great weekend, because today is my Friday. Fade to Black is produced by Hill J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. And this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'm going to go start my weekend, everybody. You do the same. Be safe. Go Backley Tapping.